You wake up knowing the rent is due in 3 days, the refrigerator is nearly empty, and the balance in your bank account is barely enough to survive the week, which creates a quiet pressure that sits in the back of your mind during every decision you make. When money is scarce, the problem is not only the lack of dollars, but the environment of constant urgency that scarcity creates, because every small expense suddenly competes with every other expense, forcing choices that feel reactive rather than thoughtful. Behavioral economists often describe this as the scarcity mindset, a condition where limited resources narrow a person's focus so intensely on the present that long-term planning becomes increasingly difficult, even for people who are intelligent and disciplined. In practical terms, this means that someone living with very little financial margin is not simply managing less money, they are also managing far more stress per dollar, which quietly changes how decisions are made. Consider a simple example where a person must choose between buying groceries today or paying a late fee tomorrow, because when resources are tight, the brain is forced to solve short-term problems first, even if that choice creates a slightly worse outcome later. Over time, these repeated short-term optimizations begin to shape financial behavior, not because people prefer them, but because the system they are operating in leaves very little room for patience or experimentation. Mathematically, the situation becomes clearer when we look at financial buffers, because someone with a small emergency cushion can absorb unexpected costs without changing their entire monthly plan, while someone without that buffer must immediately rearrange everything. For example, a $150 unexpected expense might represent a minor inconvenience for someone with savings, but for someone living paycheck to paycheck, the same number can trigger overdraft fees, delayed bills, and a chain reaction of additional costs. This cascading effect is one reason being broke often becomes more expensive over time, not because prices are different, but because the margin for absorbing mistakes or surprises is much smaller. Zooming out, economists sometimes describe this as a systemic trap, where the absence of financial slack forces decisions that protect the present moment but make future stability harder to build. The important insight here is not that individuals lack discipline or intelligence, but that scarcity itself changes the environment in which decisions happen, compressing time horizons and increasing the mental cost of every choice. Understanding this dynamic shifts the conversation away from blame and toward systems, because improving financial stability is often less about perfect decisions and more about slowly increasing the amount of breathing room between income, expenses, and uncertainty.